Hey, Corey, can you hear me?
I can. How's it going?
It is going wonderful. Happy Thursday. How's your day going so far?
Man, busy as can be. I'm sorry I'm not on camera. I'm trying to scarf
That's
down
okay.
some lunch really quick before my next meeting.
Before your next meeting, no worries at all, man. Totally get it. So, and no need to share your screen. I figured I'll share it just because that way you get a chance to see who you're working with. But no worries at all. And so, but I'm excited to get a chance to connect with you, Corey. I thought what we could do today is just talk through some numbers, talk through some next steps, and then answer any questions you may have. Does that sound good?
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. And so, how did you get to know Scott?
Turns out we have a mutual friend. I went to East Texas Baptist University, and one of my teammates knew Scott. So Scott actually graduated or left ETBU before I got there, but
Oh, very cool.
had a mutual friend, and so I saw him, saw what he was doing, and so I just randomly reached out to him, like, "Hey, like I see that you know this guy, and that
Yeah.
you're a realtor, and I was initially looking at an investment property, but I couldn't find a partner. I wanted to go in with my brother, but he didn't like the opportunity, and so it was going to require a little more liquid than I was willing to put into it. And so I've been renting because I started an apparel business also on the side of my corporate gig.
Cool.
And so I've been renting just for that reason, so I could dump money into that and keep it growing and have more disposable income. But the way these prices keep going up, I figured I need to buy now
Yep.
versus waiting. So just kind of made that switch.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And so, well, wonderful. Yeah. Have you had a good experience with Scott so far? I've worked
Yeah,
with him a lot in the past, and he's an amazing realtor. And so, have you had a good experience with him so far?
I have.
Awesome.
It's
And
been
so,
great.
for what it's worth, I think he's a great realtor. He's a really good negotiator. Really pays attention to the details, and really like it has just a kind of a knack at getting offers accepted. Which in this market, I think is very important because it's a seller's market, so it's tougher to get offers accepted right now. So you need someone that really knows what they're doing. And so, but yeah, so I trust Scott completely. Sounds like you can trust him. You trust him. So I want you to know you can really trust me to take good care of you today. My thought is, if we kind of go through the numbers, you'll feel more comfortable with what the numbers look like. We'll go through the next steps so you can kind of know what to expect, so you're ready to go when we find a house we want to make an offer on. And then obviously, with our time, we can answer any other questions you have. Does that sound good?
Perfect. Thank you.
So I thought, just to make sure I understand what's important to you, is what is your timeline? Like, ideally, when do you want to be in this new home?
I don't really have a timeline. I just wanted to start the process. So
Okay.
as soon as it happens, or my lease isn't up until I believe January. But I'm willing to pay the money to break the lease
Break it,
if I
break it
find
if you need
something
to.
before.
Do you
Yeah.
know what you
So
have
it's
to
just,
pay to break it?
I think it's double my rent. So I think I got to pay 2 months.
2 months. Okay,
Too
cool.
much
That was the
rent.
reason I was asking. So here is something that may help you with that. So number one, your pre-approval is good for 4 months. Okay, so that's
Right.
great. Refreshing a pre-approval is not that hard. So if we need to go past 4 months, that's okay. Now, let's say you found a home today and you absolutely loved it. What that would look like is you would make an offer. If that offer is accepted, generally speaking, you're going to close 30 days later. So that would mean you'd close on June 13th. Okay.
Right.
If you close on June 13th, or actually if you close any time in the month of June, your first mortgage payment is August 1st. So let's say you got under contract, you could go ahead and give your notice. You pay 2 months of rent. You move in June 13th. Your first mortgage payment's not until August 1st. And even though you're having to pay out of pocket technically to break your lease, you really wouldn't be out of pocket too much, because you'd only be probably paying, maybe partial rent in June, right? And then you pay 2 months rent on top of that. So you only probably end up about maybe half a rent out of pocket, half a month rent out of pocket. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you're telling me I can move into that home immediately with my
Yeah, you
first
can move
mortgage
in June
payment.
13th, right? Move in June 13th, but your first mortgage payment is not till August. You always get to skip a month, okay?
Right.
Now let's say, for example, it takes you 2 weeks from now and you don't really find a home till beginning of June, okay? So let's say you close July 1st, okay? Like, let's say you find a home June 1st, you close July 1st, your first mortgage payment would not be till September 1st. So in that scenario, you could put in your cancellation right away. You move in July 1st, you don't pay rent in July, but you do have to pay 2 months to buy out your thing. So you're paying 2 months, July and August, and then your first mortgage payment is not till September. So if we time it just right, like, you might not be out of pocket anything. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Absolutely.
Okay.
Is the first of the month, is that just standard? Is that everywhere?
It's always due technically the first of the month is your first payment, but it's not considered late until the 15th of the month. So if you, let's say you closed June 13th, your first mortgage payment is not due till August 1st, but technically you can wait all the way till August 15th to pay it. And if you go past August 15th, there's usually like a $50 late penalty. And then if you go past August 31st, that's when you get in trouble. You don't want to miss payment by over 30 days because then it's going to get reported as a late payment and drop your credit score a lot. Right. So that's why I always encourage people to pay it on the first, but you have 15 days of grace. Okay. So you get a little more grace in the mortgage world than you do in renting. You know, renting, like they may only give you 2 or 3 days grace to make your rent payment. Does that make sense?
It does, man. I tell you, I hate debt with a passion. So I try to pay on time. I have a background in banking when in high school and early, like first year or two out of college, but decided to go a different route, but built my credit early and so hopefully now to pay off.
I'm with you, man. I hate debt too. I know I do it for a living, but I'm a big fan of Dave Ramsey. Actually, me and Scott did the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University class together. So, and so I wanted to let you know, I prepared basically a couple different options for you. We've got you pre-approved with a conventional 30-year fixed rate mortgage. I was going to show you an option with 3 and 5% down, and I was going to show you at a sales price of $500,000. Is that in line with what you wanted to see today, or would you like to see any other quotes?
No, I think we can start there because that just means anything below that, then all of that kind of goes down.
The number's going to be better. Yeah. Totally. Okay, cool. So then, Corey, what I thought I could do is let me just give you a quick overview of what the process looks like to get a mortgage, and then we can jump into the numbers. Does that sound good?
Perfect.
So, Corey, I would say a helpful illustration is think of buying a home and getting a mortgage kind of like going on vacation and going through airport security. And what I mean by that is buying a home is usually pretty fun and exciting, especially when you do it with Scott. Getting a mortgage is not the most fun and exciting thing. I wish it was, but honestly, it can feel a little invasive compared to other purchase experiences you've had in your life. With a mortgage, you're having your credit pulled, you're having bank statements, W-2s, you're being asked about your 2-year job history. These are things you don't typically have to do when you buy things in life. And so while all mortgage lenders nationwide do require documents to get your loan approved, I do like to view my process a little bit more like the TSA line at the airport. Corey, my goal is to get you through this process as quickly and as pleasantly as possible. Okay?
Gotcha.
But at the same time, I want to set good expectations. And so think of what 9/11 did to the airline industry. 2008 did that to the mortgage industry. So since 2008, we've become one of the more highly regulated industries out there. Add on top of that, 2020 with COVID, there were some new regulations that went into place that affect these things. And then we're also in 2021 where it's more of a seller's market. So what's happening is you're competing with cash offers. There's not a ton of inventory, and you may run into some low appraisals. So there's a little bit more issues that are in the mix right now. And so it creates an environment, Corey, where you could run into something that would frustrate you. And so like a recent study showed 68% of people who went through this process did not enjoy it. I don't want that to be you. I want you to have an amazing experience. That's super important to me. You referred from Scott, so I want you to have a great experience. So I find if I'm upfront with people about some of the more common frustrations, we have a better likelihood of being able to avoid those issues. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Just managing expectations. Love it.
Exactly, right? So like the biggest concern people run into is just a feeling of bait and switch. It's very common for people to feel kind of confused by the numbers or feel like they're not what they thought they were, or maybe they changed. I think some of that is a result of bad online calculators or bad online lenders. So I don't recommend running quotes online because sometimes those are a bit misleading, especially here in the state of Texas because we have very high property taxes. So you could literally have 2 homes at a $500,000 purchase price, and the numbers are going to be different because the property taxes are different for every house. So I think just knowing that up front is a helpful tip. Number 2 is it's very common for people to get frustrated with the number of document requests. You are pre-approved, which is awesome, right? But we have to get you through 2 more levels of approval. So that's why it typically takes 30 days to close. So I think knowing upfront, hey, we're going to have to come back and ask for documents a couple of times, I think is another helpful tip. Number 3 is missing a close date. In 2020, 57%.
Can we go back to number 2 really quick?
Sure. Jackson? Yeah, absolutely.
What are the multiple? So you mentioned 2 more, I guess, levels. What are those 2 levels, other 2 levels?
Sure. So you're pre-approved. We need to get conditional approval and we need to get final approval. So think of me like you're maybe attorney. Okay, I'm taking on your case. I'm going to win your case. So I'm saying, hey, I've reviewed all the information. This is a winnable case. You are pre-approved. I promise you I'm going to win.
Yeah.
Well, we got to go before a judge, right? And so we've got to present the documentation to the judge, which in this illustration is an underwriter. So the underwriter then is going to review it and say, yep, I agree with Jackson. The loan is conditionally approved. So then you're good. But then in essence, there's some other things we got to confirm, like on the property, like we got to get an appraisal.